In many parts of the world, $1 can still buy a full meal, a ride across town, or even a haircut. But in Australia, $1 feels almost invisible. And yet somehow, even here, where coffee can cost $6 and rent prices shock even locals, that single coin still tells a surprisingly interesting story. Australia sounds different from almost anywhere else. The screech of cockatoos at sunrise. The distant rumble of trains sliding through Sydney stations. The steady hiss of espresso machines before office hours even begin. Across the country, life moves between glass skyscrapers, beach towns, suburban barbecue smoke, and endless highways stretching through the outback. People line up outside cafes before 7 a.m. Construction workers grab meat pies on the way to work. Surfers carry boards under skies so bright they almost look artificial. Right now, $1 is worth roughly 1.5 Australian dollars. That may not sound like much. But in Australia, the real surprise is not what $1 buys. It's what it doesn't. In Sydney or Melbourne, $1 Australian won't even buy a bottle of water in many convenience stores. A single banana at a supermarket can already cost more than that. And that's the first shock for many visitors. But Australia has its own version of small dollar culture. At old-school bakeries, a few coins can still get you a warm sausage roll. Flaky pastry cracking apart with the smell of butter and pepper drifting into the street. In some suburban fish and chip shops, $1 is enough for a handful of hot chips wrapped in paper, soaked with vinegar and chicken salt. It's simple food. Cheap food. But for generations of Australians, this is childhood after school. Then there are the supermarkets. Australia has a strange national obsession with something called the democracy sausage. A grilled sausage served on white bread during election days, often sold for just a couple of dollars to raise money for local communities. And somehow, that humble sausage has become part of the country's identity. But the real surprise comes from something much smaller. Because in Australia, even $1 coins themselves have a strange cultural weight. People leave them in car cup holders, in kitchen bowls, at the bottom of beach bags. Not because they're worthless, but because life here moves mostly without cash at all. If there's one thing that perfectly captures modern Australia, it might actually be the coffee culture. Not giant chain cafes, not sugary drinks, but tiny independent coffee shops hidden under office towers and suburban corners. Australia takes coffee almost irrationally seriously. Baristas train for years. Locals argue about beans, milk texture, and espresso timing with the intensity of sports fans. And unlike many countries, Australians largely rejected huge coffee chains for decades in favor of local cafes. That says a lot about the country itself. Australia is wealthy, modern, fast-moving, but at the same time deeply attached to small local businesses and everyday rituals. Even during the morning rush, people still pause for coffee. Not just for caffeine, but for routine, conversation, and rhythm. And while $1 won't buy the coffee itself, it might cover the extra shot of espresso, which somehow feels very Australian. Australia runs on a quiet but highly efficient everyday system. Delivery riders move through city streets packed with takeaway orders. QR code payments exist almost everywhere, from luxury restaurants to tiny weekend markets. Many beach towns still operate on trust-based systems. Small roadside fruit stands with handwritten signs asking people to leave coins in a box. And surprisingly, some of them actually work. Across the country, massive mining industries, tourism, international students, and hospitality workers all connect into the same economic machine. But daily life in Australia often feels strangely relaxed compared to other wealthy countries. People finish work and immediately head outdoors. Parks fill with families. Public barbecue grills near beaches stay crowded until sunset. Even in expensive cities, there's a constant cultural pressure to enjoy life outside of work. And maybe that's why Australians tolerate the high prices. Because the lifestyle itself becomes part of what people are paying for. Of course, none of this means life in Australia is easy. Housing prices in cities like Sydney have become some of the highest in the world. Rent, groceries, and transportation costs continue rising every year. What feels cheap to tourists often feels very different to locals dealing with everyday expenses. And many younger Australians now worry that the lifestyle previous generations enjoyed is becoming harder to afford. But even with those changes, the smallest everyday moments still reveal something important about the country. In the end, maybe the most memorable thing about Australia isn't what $1 can buy. It's the image of a crowded cafe at sunrise. Construction workers ordering flat whites. Surfers walking barefoot past million-dollar homes. And strangers still stopping to talk over coffee before the day begins. Because sometimes the value of money says less about the currency itself, and more about the kind of life built around it. So if you had just $1 in Australia, would you spend it on hot chips, a bakery snack, or save it toward that famous Australian coffee? And which country should be next?